A police officer raised his gun at a frail, elderly black veteran, a man who once risked his life for this country. He thought no one was watching. He thought he could intimidate without consequences. But within minutes, the entire neighborhood and eventually the world saw what happened. And that officer's career ended instantly. 81-year-old Charles Henderson had lived in his neighborhood for over 40 years. A retired Army sergeant, Charles had fought in Vietnam, where he earned a Purple Heart after saving his platoon in a firefight. Though his body was older, his spirit was unshakable. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Charles as the kind man who fixed bikes for kids, told war stories at block parties, and waved to every passerby from his front porch. But one officer didn't see him as a hero. He only saw his skin color. Officer Derek Mills had a reputation. Neighbors whispered about his unnecessary stops, his harsh tone, and his need to assert authority. Behind his polished badge, Derek carried prejudice, a bias that surfaced in subtle insults, unnecessary friskings, and intimidation tactics. When Derek saw Charles walking home one afternoon from the local grocery store, carrying a simple bag of bread and milk, he made a decision that would cost him everything. Charles walked slowly, cane in one hand, groceries in the other. It was a quiet evening, the kind where the sun dipped low and kids played in yards. Suddenly, tires screeched. Derek pulled up, lights flashing. "Hey, hands where I can see them!" Derek barked, stepping out with his gun drawn. Neighbors froze. Mothers called their children inside. Charles, confused, gently set his groceries down. "Officer, is there a problem?" Derek snarled. "You match the description of a burglary suspect. Don't move!" But everyone knew it was a lie. There had been no burglary. No suspect. Only an elderly veteran in his neighborhood. What Derek didn't realize was that dozens of cell phones were raised. Neighbors began recording from porches, cars and sidewalks. Charles stood tall, his cane trembling but his eyes unafraid. "I served this country so people like you could wear that badge," Charles said firmly. Derek waved his gun closer. "Shut up, get on the ground." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Children clung to their parents, but then someone shouted, "He's a veteran. That man fought for this country." The crowd's voice grew louder. Dozens began shouting at Derek, "Put the gun down. He's an old man. That's Charles Henderson. He's a hero." But Derek's ego refused to back down. He lunged forward, grabbing Charles's arm, nearly knocking him to the ground. That's when Charles's military ID slipped from his pocket. It hit the pavement, clearly showing his name, rank, and Purple Heart distinction. One neighbor picked it up and held it high for the cameras. "This man is a decorated veteran. You're pointing a gun at a war hero." Within minutes, backup patrol cars arrived, but not to help Derek. The other officers saw the crowd, the phones, the shaking veteran, and Derek's weapon still drawn. "Stand down, Mills." One officer shouted, but Derek refused. He sneered, "You're all soft. He's dangerous." That was the last straw. His own supervisor disarmed him on the spot. Handcuffs clicked, but not on Charles. On Derek, cheers erupted from the crowd. Charles's knees buckled and neighbors rushed to hold him up, chanting his name. "Charles! Charles! Charles!" The video spread online within hours. Headlines blared. "Officer pulls gun on 81-year-old black veteran. Hero targeted by racist cop. Community stands with veteran." Charles appeared on the evening news, calm but emotional. "I've faced guns before," he said softly, "but I never thought I'd face one in my own neighborhood. From the very people sworn to protect me." Derek Mills was fired immediately, stripped of his badge and investigated for civil rights violations. His name became synonymous with disgrace. Charles didn't sue. He didn't rage. Instead, he asked the police department for one thing: train your officers better. Teach them that the uniform doesn't make them powerful. It makes them responsible. The department announced sweeping reforms, citing Charles's courage as the turning point. At the next town hall, Charles stood surrounded by neighbors of every age and race. For the first time in years, he smiled through tears. He hadn't just defended himself. He'd defended his entire community. Racism hides in the shadows of authority until it's exposed in the light. That officer thought no one would care about a senior black veteran. But Charles Henderson's courage and his community's voice proved otherwise. In the end, the badge was taken from the man who abused it, and honor remained with the man who had earned it long ago. Respect is not given by force. It is earned. and Charles had earned it 1,000 times over.